Robservations with Robert, Meyer, Burnett.
Well, greetings, imagination connoisseurs. Once again, it is I, your Duke of Dope Discourse, your master of fun and wonder, your viceroy of verisimilitude, of course, your sommelier of sci-fi and cinema, your evangelist of the imagination, and of course, your existential Mr. Rogers. That's right, me, Robert Meyer Burnett, and I am, of course, Robcasting at you imagination connoisseurs, you members of this, the Post-Geek Singularity community. This is Robservations, the show about something, episode number 712. And of course, it's finally happened. It's finally unleashed. Fast 9, the Fast Saga, is open around the country, and you can all take part in the great spectacle of disappointment the finished film turned out to be. Now, you all know I was one of the founding members of the hashtag Justice for Han movement. I love me some Sun Kang, and he looks like a badass in this movie. But my God, let's just say I think he was underserved. I still don't know, after seeing the film, how he got out of his predicament. I get it. They gave him a whole backstory. They retconned it all. I understand. Okay, fine. I'll go with it. But I'll tell you, the movie, to say that it strains credulity is not giving incredulity enough credit. Whatever that means. That was not one of my better turns of phrase, let me tell you. But boy, here's a film that even I, as the viceroy of verisimilitude, I know. People are going to say, well, Rob, how is it that you like the Fast and the Furious franchise when it lacks verisimilitude? And I mean, it does lack verisimilitude, but it didn't always, and it's worked up to a state of, well, I like to say it, but unrealistic gobbledygook. As someone who is a space freak, and I'm all behind the space program, and I'm so happy that Virgin Galactic is finally going to start flying. I love the space program, but what this movie does in terms of space science sets us back 50 years at least. Justin Lin, I've loved you. I've supported you. But God damn it, I'm glad you got paid, but you should be ashamed of yourself for this movie. But you know what? That's not what I want to talk about. I don't like to be negative. There is an upside, at least for a while. And that upside is, let's delve into it. Fast 9 is zooming to a pandemic opening record of $66 million. This is the Friday midday update from Deadline. Anthony D'Alessandro put this in at 12:39 p.m. Midday update. The first great sign that the box office is coming back. Universal's Fast 9 is seeing a $29.5 million today, including last night's Thursday previews, for a three-day projected at $66.5 million at 4,179 theaters. Amazing, and the best three-day we've seen since mid-March to 2020 when the pandemic started. Would love to see where AMC stock shoots to on Monday night. Or Monday. It's now trading, as of this report, at $53.71, and it hit a high a couple of weeks ago at $72.62. Paramount's Quiet Place 2 previously held the three-day opening record during the pandemic with $47.5 million, $57 million 4 days over the Memorial Day weekend. Fast 9 will hit $300 million offshore this coming weekend as it hits the UK and Mexico, and it's expected that the Justin Lin-directed Ninth Quill, is that what it's called, a Ninth Quill? Ninth Quill will best the Wonder Woman total of Warner Brothers' Tenet, which is, worldwide, not Wonder Woman. And it's expected that the Justin Lin-directed Ninth Quill will best the worldwide total of Warner Brothers' Tenet, which is $363.7 million. Universal's Fast 9 is off to a great start, as expected, having grossed $7 million from 3,100 theaters last night. And it began showtimes at 7 on Thursday. In great news, Fast 9 did more business last night than Hobbs and Shaw did in its Thursday previews, which were $5.8 million at 3,400 theaters, and that's when 100% of exhibition was open, including Canada. Parts of Canada remain capped, with big provinces like Ontario closed until late July. The 3-day conservative estimates are hovering around 60 million now, but no one will be shocked if it's north of 70 million. Hobbs & Shaw posted a 23.6 million Friday on its way to a $60 million opening weekend, while the Justin Lin directed and co-scripted Fast 9 has the best pre-sales Fandango has seen to date. We don't know how front-loaded the business will be. Fast 9 is looked at to be a savior in the summer box office that's been in a funk as the industry tries to come out of the pandemic. In the wake of A Quiet Place 2, which repped a record opening since mid-March 2020 with a $57.1 million over 4 days during the Memorial holiday frame, there's still capacity restrictions across the U.S. except for Los Angeles and New York City, and under 80% of all 5,800 U.S. and Canadian theaters open. However, sources blame lackluster product on the marquee in recent weeks, i.e., In the Heights, Hitman's Wife's Bodyguard, Peter Rabbit 2, not people's attitude about going to the movies after living under lockdown. If you're questioning people's attitudes about going out, then check out the crowds at Major League Baseball games. There was hardly an open seat available in the Dodgers-Cubs game last night at Dodger Stadium. 2015's Furious 7 holds multiple records for Universal's Fast and Furious series, including Best Domestic Thursday Previews of $15.8 million, an opening weekend of $147.1 million for the series' best ever $355.5 million Cube domestic. No one is expecting that kind of business for Fast 9, given the franchise's age, plus Furious 7 served as the cinematic memorial for its late star Paul Walker. Fast 9's Thursday preview also bested 2011's Fast 5, which opened at $3.7 million, and 2009's Fast and Furious, which is the fourth film, at $1.8 million, but came in behind the 2017 installment Fate of the Furious at $10.4 million, and 2013's Fast and Furious 6 at $7.5 million. Lin's previous turn as the director of the series. So there you go. Hey, this is good stuff happening there, very much so. It's not a runaway blockbuster. It can't be. It can't put up the kind of numbers that we're used to because we're still in a pandemic, and we're the only place where theaters are at capacity. We, Los Angeles, or California and New York City, or is it LA and New York? Everyone else, it's not the same. It's not the same. But, I understand. I get it. However, it's still nice to see people going to the movies. We got Black Widow opening in, 2 weeks? And then we've got other movies over the summer. We've just seen the new Shang-Chi trailer drop, which, let me tell you, oh my God, Tony Leung, one of my favorite actors. He is all over that trailer. I'm so excited about Shang-Chi. It looks so good. I mean, who would have thunk? 2 ninja movies in a week. Between Snake Eyes and Shang-Chi, I'm going to get my martial arts fix. I'm going to get my ninja fix. I'm going to get my world-dominating Chinese gangster and with supernatural, or actually extraterrestrial imbued powers with Mr. Tony Leung. I can't wait. By the way, just so you all know, if you think I forgot about my 2-pack of Ong Lee's Lust Caution action figures with Tony Leung and a chair, I have not. The pre-orders was done almost a year ago. It's still coming, and it'll probably be right here. My favorite Chinese actor, I'm telling you, working today. I know, it used to be Chow Yun-Fat, which, by the way, I have a great action figure of Chow Yun-Fat from A Better Tomorrow, which probably should go up. Things are going to change around here a little bit more. I know I'm going to square this off again because I need the room. I do like this angle. It's good. Things are going to change a little bit here in the Robservatory. You're going to see more action figures that you haven't seen as things move into module cases and others come on the shelves. Either way, it's all exciting. Now, it isn't all coming up roses, though, because also in Deadline today was another article. And this article, I got to say, kind of harshed my mellow, to be honest. It might harsh your mellow, too. And what does that mean, harshing a mellow? Well, it's like you're mellow. You're kind of in a mellow mood. Everything seems good. It's Friday, it's sunny, it's warm. And then someone comes along and, drops, a pot full of ice, cold water in your lap. And your mellow suddenly, your mellow is harshed. Someone harshed your mellow. Well, this article harshed my theaters are coming back mellow. And if I'm harshed, you're going to be harshed. So we can be harshed together, if you know what I'm saying. So let's delve into this article, which it's not all coming up roses. Dade Hayes put this out at 10:37 this morning, also on Deadline. After near-term revival, U.S. box office will lose billions as pandemic-born window shifts become permanent. Analyst predicts. Come on, man. Why you got to do this to me? Why you got to... come on, Dade. All right. I know. Don't shoot the messenger. I get it. But here we go. The summer box office, starting with today's long-anticipated release of Universal's F9, is bringing a renewed sense of optimism about the theatrical movie business. But Robert Fishman, of course his last name is Fishman, an exhibition analyst with Wall Street research firm MoffettNathanson, predicts the release of Pent-Up Demand will be followed by a significant box office correction. In a report titled U.S. Theaters, It's All About the Windows, Fishman predicts that grosses in 2022 will shed $2.3 billion, or 20% compared with 2019 due to shifts in release windows. This report does not look out beyond 2022, but it contains some ominous assessments of the marketplace over the next year plus. While Fishman has gone on the record previously with 2022 estimates, his new report features a bottom-up analysis of studios' current strategies, ladies, imagining they had been in place in 2019. The year 2019 is widely used as the benchmark for industry forecasts, as it was the last fully intact year before the coronavirus pandemic started upending the sector in 2020. Strategies adopted during the pandemic, with theaters shuttered, will not disappear and will limit the revenue potential of movie theaters, Fishman expects. In terms of specific theater companies, the report notes only Cinemark reaffirming the analyst's neutral rating on its stock at a 12-month price target of $20. The circuit shares were up nearly 2% in midday trading today, just above $23. Quote, now that studios essentially have full flexibility on windowing strategies with increasing emphasis on favoring self-owned OTT platforms, the supply of theatrical releases from the major Hollywood studios into theaters should be negatively impacted, which would hurt long-term attendance trends, he wrote. Examining the 2019 calendar through a present-day lens, the analyst estimates a bit more than 70% of ticket sales would stem from exclusive theatrical releases, or $8.2 billion of 2019's $11.4 billion. About 20% would be non-exclusive theatrical releases, a category including day-and-date releases on Disney+, Premier Access, or as no additional charge titles on HBO Max or Paramount. Most of the rest, or 7%, would be films that would likely have skipped the theatrical window altogether to go direct to streaming. Pixar's Luca on Disney Plus is one current example. I don't believe outside the pandemic Luca would have gone Disney Plus exclusive. It absolutely would have opened in theaters. When viewed in terms of the number of releases, the change appears even more profound. Fishman estimates that almost 40% of the 2019 slate from Disney, Warner Brothers, Universal, Sony, and Paramount would have been unlikely to play exclusively in theaters. Fishman sees an acceleration of movie-going demand as mask mandates ease, Americans continue re-entering public life, and delayed releases line up shoulder to shoulder in multiplexes. Third quarter box office will approach $2 billion, he estimates, which is about 30% below the comparable period in 2019. The fourth quarter, though, should surpass 2019 and reach just shy of $3 billion in grosses. Yet Fishman cautioned, the aggressiveness of studios' respective windowing strategies is still one of the key unknown variables in our short-term and longer-term forecast. Assessing each studio, the analyst said Universal will see higher cannibalization due to its more aggressive approach to windows. The studio has made deals with exhibition that could see some non-tentpole titles go to premium video on demand after just 17 days in theaters. Franchise films can make the move after 31 days. Most other studios are favoring the 45-day theatrical exclusive window, so overall Fishman sees an overall 5% hit to the exclusive theatrical box office due to new windows approaches. It is trickier to predict how the non-exclusive titles will fare. If Disney continues to push Disney Plus Premier Access for its family-oriented titles, we would anticipate a higher cannibalization rate, Fishman wrote. Depending on what Warner Brothers, Paramount, and Universal decide to do, we expect a meaningful cannibalization rate on historical box office for these films, the analyst added. He pegged it at 30%, but noted that the number could be too conservative. Economically, media companies see an upside in sacrificing some theatrical revenue. Instead of splitting ticket sales half and half, or sometimes a bit more in their favor, with theaters, they can control 80% or more with PVOD or streaming. Disney, the number one studio in market share, charges $30 for premiere access releases, with the upcoming Marvel release Black Widow slated to be the next use of that format. Netflix is a potential new element in the mix for 2022, as are Apple and Amazon, now that the latter tech giant is about to ingest MGM. Netflix's recent one-week exclusive with Army of the Dead yielded a bit less than 800,000 from 600 runs, according to industry estimates. But it was a milestone in that it played in Cinemark theaters nationwide. The number 3 U.S. circuit had previously resisted booking Netflix fare, but has become a lot more open to its titles of late as it has ramped back up toward full operation. We anticipate a more formal agreement between Netflix and exhibitors to help bring additional attention and eventize some of its key releases going forward, Fishman wrote. He noted Steven Spielberg's Amblin Partners deal with Netflix, describing the streaming service as a helper for the overall box office. Fishman sees an incremental $600 million in annual domestic box office from 20 Netflix titles next year, a fraction of the streaming giant's annual feature output. Of course, it's unclear how many people nationally would be willing to pay for a Netflix movie only a few weeks ahead of it hitting their already paid-for SVOD service on a regular basis, he acknowledged. Plus, Netflix, despite all of its cinephile overtures in taking over the Egyptian Theater in L.A. and the Paris in New York, has not seemed particularly eager to take on Theatrical as the core part of its business. Still, $600 million is nothing to sneeze at. So here we're at, basically more doomsaying in a way. I mean, clearly the business is changing, and the idea that, look, I am of the belief that even documentaries, imagery that is bigger than life, whether it's a low-budget indie film or a Hollywood giant tentpole comic book spectacle like Avengers Endgame, all movies are better served on larger screens with great projection and loud sound. They just are. You want to be overwhelmed. And I think that's what we get going to the movies. And I don't necessarily want to lose that experience. I don't know if most people are like this, however. I think there's some, it's fun to go out to the movies having that collective experience. It can't be beat, especially when you get something like the portal sequence in Avengers Endgame. I mean, the response from the audience when you hear Sam Wilson say "on your left," which mirrors something that Cap said to him early on in Captain America Civil War, was an amazing experience. I wouldn't trade that for the world. So, I mean, the fact is, though, I think most people, going out to the movies is an expensive proposition, especially if you have families. So maybe a $30 premium access for a Disney film makes sense. But the fact is, one way or another, industry mavens are saying things are going to change. Is theatrical exhibition going to stay the same way it's always been? Clearly not. There are sea changes everywhere. I do think 17 days that Universal's talking about is too short of a window. 45 days would be, I think, I mean, look, if you have a hit movie that's playing 8 weeks in, they should be able to keep it there. And I guess they can with tentpole properties, but I really would like to see the theatrical experience preserved. And by the way, I will never not believe that a great theatrical run adds immeasurable value to a movie and to its ancillary marketing, whether it's SVOD, whether it's video on demand, whether it's in hotels, whether it's in airplanes, wherever it is, physical media, as that dwindles, a big theatrical release, people hear that, oh, this movie made money. It adds value that you can only add with a theatrical release, and I don't want to see that go away. But we're going to have to wait and see what happens. I mean, obviously, we're not coming out of this pandemic as fast as we might have hoped. There's still states where people are resisting vaccination, and we're seeing variants rise in unvaccinated people, which is going to keep happening, which is unfortunate because that's the only way we're going to get rid of this disease. So we'll see. I mean, we'll see what happens. Anyway, I'll tell you. I got some letters. Would you like to hear them? I know that you might. I thought you might because I want to hear them. Because why not? Why not hear them? Who am I going to start with today? Are all the way from Puerto Rico, Victor Rosario Fermain is here. You know him, you love him. Dear Captain of the USS Imagination, glowing thingies. So the read between the lines message of the new Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings trailer is that a spy thriller starring an unknown Asian actor won't sell. Not even one set in the MCU. They might be right. Simu Liu obviously doesn't have the star power of Scarlett Johansson. Say goodbye to Blackjack Tar, Clive Reston, and Leiko Wu, and mention Galacy's kung fu flavored Bondian espionage, which breaks my heart. And say hello to dragons, mysticism, and magical glowing thingies to hold a la Doctor Strange. The sorcerer against the abomination seemed to cement this mystic art connection. Shang-Chi was a great down-to-earth character without these cockamamie new powers. Now he'll become something else. At least they didn't iron fist him like I feared they had for a minute. I'll still watch the film, but I'm sad to report that my excitement level from the cool and exciting teaser to this trailer has chasmed. Thank you for reading my letters. Many blessings. And stay metal. Oh, come on, Victor. I thought this new trailer was great. And yeah, there's a lot of mysticism. But remember, where do those rings come from? They're extraterrestrial in origin. I understand. I love Shang-Chi because, like Victor brings up, the Doug Mensch, Paul Gulacy run is an incredible run on the comic. I'm a huge fan of Paul Gulacy's art. And I love Doug Mensch's writing. And Victor's right. It was much more of a James Bondian espionage thing. And yeah, this has a dragon. We'll wait and see who it is. Could be a couple. We don't know. And also, yeah, there's a lot of energy wielding. There's a lot of craziness going around. But I let's wait and see the movie. I thought it looked really good. I'm really excited for it. And I think there is going to be a lot of espionage. And come on, ninjas. That's all I know. It's Chinese, but ninjas. Everybody needs ninjas. So, you know, what can you say? I like it. Atlas Alux writes in and says, Dear Rob, in June of 2020, we premiered our documentary video, Star Wars: The Skywalker Apocalypse. With just under 1,000 views, it hasn't exactly set YouTube on fire. That said, we would be remiss not to offer our insights into that other great and oh-so-influential sci-fi franchise to grace the big and small screen in the past 55 years. Please note 5 + 5 = 10. Whereas Star Wars is mythology, science fantasy set a long time ago in a galaxy far away, which reveals into universal truths via symbol and allegory, Star Trek is docudrama. So I thought so. Science fiction set in the future, which captures to varying degrees of faithfulness and accuracy the actual state of our galaxy here and now, minus all the warfare and especially minus the dystopian nightmares of the Discovery and Picard streaming series. Classic Trek and Next Generation envisioned a united federation of planets headed up by our humanity in the not-so-distant future. There is, in fact, a universal brotherhood of enlightened humanities, which is overseen by Ormus, the ascended master and cosmo creator at the very heart of the Milky Way galaxy, the innermost being at the heart of a supergiant star around which the whole of the Milky Galaxy revolves. In our upcoming video on Star Trek, we will endeavor to do as we did in Skywalker Apocalypse and reveal the meaningful and practical realities behind the second of the world's two most influential science fiction franchises. From Gene Roddenberry's hopeful vision in Vulcan mysticism to Warp Drive and the Prime Directive, Star Trek gave us a window into how members of enlightened humanities actually interact with one another, and the cosmos as ambassadors of the universal brotherhood of the Great White Lodge. No mere explorers who seek out new life and new civilizations and boldly go where no one has gone before. Rather, metaphysical scientists working with the living and cosmic force as revealed in Star Wars, referred to in our Skywalker Apocalypse video for details, who seek out suffering and struggling civilizations and boldly give where countless other souls have given before, while observing rules not unlike the Prime Directive, so that humanities can truly evolve and join the universal fraternity of the cosmic Christ for the sake of the end of suffering of all things. True to the principles of esotericism and the Tree of Life, it takes two pillars to uphold the edifice of the temple. Jachin and Boaz, masculine and feminine, heart and mind, the pillar of heaven, the priest, magician, king, and the pillar of earth, the priestess, queen. Star Wars as mythology, the revelatory vessel of the Force, in its fall and rise as the cosmic Christ, Skywalkers, is the first pillar of heaven. Star Trek, the pragmatic vehicle of galactic diplomacy and scientific discovery, is the pillar of earth. Both pillars are required for a humanity to evolve and advance to the membership in the universal brotherhood of the Great White Lodge. We shall do our very best to do justice to Star Trek as we did Star Wars and more. Explain the very real front facing humanity here and now. How Discovery and Picard add to the abundant evidence we are losing the battle on said front. And most importantly, what it will take for us as individuals on our own Star Trek to win the war for the souls of humankind and set humanity on a path to full membership in the United Federation of Enlightened Planets. Attalus Alex. Well, there you go. That's amazing. I'm going to put a link to their previous documentary. Let's open. Wow, it's 2 hours and 28 minutes long. I haven't watched this, so I can't tell you if it's good or not. But it only does have 911 views, and it dropped over a year ago. Maybe throw in a few views, their way. It's pretty cool. So the name of this is Star Wars: The Skywalker Apocalypse, and the description is, I just put that into the live chat. Here's what they say about this film. On the 40th anniversary of The Empire Strikes Back, and roughly 6 months after the release of The Rise of Skywalker, the time has come to offer an esoteric unveiling of the epic 9-film Skywalker saga and offer Star Wars fans, pundits, critics, and YouTubers alike new hope of their beloved mythology, a chance to see this entertainment franchise in a whole new light and re-examine any misgivings about the Disney sequel trilogy in light of the facts about the Force behind the whole Skywalker saga. So there you go. That is called Star Wars: The Skywalker Apocalypse, and it's got 28 likes and 6 dislikes. So hey, not a great ratio. Why don't you go take this, watch it, give it a look. It does say it contains mature content. I don't know what necessarily that means, but hey, I'm willing to give them the benefit of the doubt. Thanks for writing in, and their next one is called Star Trek: The Final Frontier and Now. I get it. The Final Frontier and Now. Get it? Pretty good. And that comes from Attalus Alex. This could actually be really interesting, or your ultimate academic nightmare presentation. I don't know yet. But Attalus, I want to thank you for the work. Thanks for writing in and bringing my attention to this. I know you haven't written in. This was not your first letter, but it was nice to hear from you. So that's pretty cool. R. Bruce McGill writes in. And this says it's a private message for me. So unfortunately, R. Bruce McGill, I can't answer this live, which you probably don't want me to anyway. So I'm not going to do that. Let's see. What else is here? What's going on? Would you be surprised if I told you Omar94 wrote a letter? Hi, Rob, moderators in the Post-Geek Singularity. I was looking at what Disney live-action remakes are being developed and remembered how there's going to be a Robin Hood live-action remake. This has me wondering how Disney plans to do that, only because something in animation doesn't always work in live action. In Robin Hood's case, it would be like 2019's Cats, where you have live-action anthropomorphic cats, and since the Disney animated version is an all non-human cast, it would just look strange in live action. You can get away with it in animation because you can be as stylized as you want with animation, but live action has limitations. It's very much like how The Simpsons works because it's a cartoon, and you can get away with the human characters having yellow skin and strangely shaped bodies and hair. If it was live action, however, it would be very strange and uncomfortable to watch. That's my concern for Robin Hood if it ever gets made. Thanks, and live long and prosper. I don't know, man. I mean, What about like the Jungle Book? What about the animals in Jungle Book like Baloo? I thought that looked pretty dope, to be honest. I mean, maybe they could do it. They might be able to do it. You just never know. They could. Who's to say they couldn't? I think they could. It really depends on the filmmaker and how they can pull it off. Guess who we have a letter from, ladies and gentlemen? Louise X. Sparrow. That's right, our moderator. She's now on notice. She's in the chat. She's written a letter. And we're gonna so all eyes go on to Louise X. Sparrow right now. Hi, Rob. Isn't it strange how the simplest of things can make us sad? I say this having been flicking through the Disney Plus animated movies this weekend in a distracted search for something to have on in the background that wouldn't make me feel guilty for not just going and finding the DVD, which I probably do own somewhere. It's not like I didn't know that Disney are buying everything they can get their hands on. I disapprove of what they've done with Star Wars, but I watched The Mandalorian anyway. I don't think it's healthy for the Marvel franchise to be owned by them as well, but I have no great attachment to it. I knew that they bought Fox properties, and for the most part, I've seen it as rather convenient. So, what is it that I found that bothered me enough that I was inspired to write a letter? In the early 70s and 80s, in the late 70s and early 80s, after working on some of the most beloved films, Don Bluth left Disney Studios with some of his colleagues and started his own production company. Whether it was because he wanted to tell stories his own way, go back to a more traditional style of animation, or just didn't agree with the direction Disney was taking, all versions of the story I've heard, he did effectively set up in competition with one of the largest and most famous animation and film production companies in the world. Financially, the results were mixed, but he creatively did produce multiple animated films that enchanted a generation and truly rivaled The Mouse. Now, my interest in movies has always been more on the film itself than on who made them, but even as a child, I knew who Don Bluth was, and I cared about his achievement. I'd go so far as to say that was one of the things that made me pay more attention to studios and creators, etc. I was certainly paying attention to the quality of animation and storytelling, and using that to inform my expectations for the next production. I loved his films. My friends loved them. We talked about them, sang with them, drew the characters, and in some cases requested that they be featured on our birthday cakes. Even as we got older, they were watched and rewatched, hired, bought on VHS, and repurchased on DVD. They were the equal of any Disney film, and in some cases, their superiors. I was by no means a child when Anastasia came out, but I went to see it at the Pictures with a group of friends, and we left elated. And it remains one of my favorites. It was beautifully drawn, had a fantastic score, and a great voice cast from Meg Ryan to Christopher Lloyd. Wikipedia even lists it as establishing 20th Century Fox as a Disney competitor. And now, it belongs to Disney. Yes, that was what caused my disquiet. It was sitting there along with Thumbelina and Titan AE. Just one of 100-odd thumbnails to choose between, and it probably won't even occur to most people today that it isn't a Disney movie, let alone that it had a history defined by not being a Disney movie. Growing up in the before times, before the Empire, being given a film was exciting, and assuming you liked it, it became a treasured possession. Streaming is convenient. It's a great service, giving us access to so many things we might never have otherwise seen, but it also cheapens its content by making it easily consumed before moving on to the next thing. Call it stubborn, call it irrational, call it old-fashioned. But for some things, even when they aren't hacked about mess, Star Wars Original Trilogy, it's still worth going to find the DVD. Thank you, as always, Louise X. Sparrow. What a lovely letter, Louise. Thank you for writing it in. Thank you for writing it and then sending it in. Thank you for putting keyboard to paper. Virtual paper. I very much appreciate that. I think you're right. I mean, Don Bluth, if memory serves, it was The Secret of Nim that was the first movie that he really exploded on the scene with. And that was a gorgeous movie. And I loved it. And then Don Bluth Studios also did like the Dragon's Lair video game. Those are some of the things that they were doing. And it was great stuff. And I know what you mean. Like, Disney is acquiring all these things and in a way sort of is erasing the history. Don Bluth Studios were a rival. They did some amazing work. I was a huge fan of Don Bluth, and you're absolutely right. And it's, there's kind of a melancholy thing going on where do people remember Don Bluth? He certainly is worthy of remembrance, but do you get to see his stuff? Do you remember his stuff? And like you said, you might be clicking on something thinking, oh, this is just a Disney movie. And eventually I think one day people are going to think Shrek was a Disney movie. Maybe not because it's Universal, but they might. And I think everybody's de facto position is that any animated film, it's got to be Disney, right? Unless it's animation. And even Disney released things like Howl's Moving Castle and Princess Mononoke. So, yeah, I feel you. Look, though, I think at the end of the day, you have to remember it's great that we still have these movies, that you can still see them. They're still available. I think that's what's one of the things that's really most important, is that we're still able to see them. It would be a big shame if we were not able to see them. And I think that as long as we can, well, we are doing okay. I hope. Moses Felix Sampson writes in, and oh, that's right. He asked me before if he could send in his movie to the Intergalactic Imagination Connoisseurs Film Festival, and of course it's over. I mean, you could send it in if you wanted to. I'd watch it, but it won't be in competition or anything. Our friend Dean Mikitich writes in. Dean says, "Hi, Rob and the PGS. I'm listening to the letter on the mirror universe from Star Trek on episode 710, and this got me thinking. The mirror universe does not make sense. How can our beloved characters exist in it when it is so vastly different from our own events? I can give the original series episode a pass because it never stated when the two universes started to differ from one another. This event is about something that should have happened just before the main characters were born, about 50 years before the episode takes place, meaning their parents could have still met and hooked up so our beloved characters could exist. Yet they grew up in this empire, so their views and experience would be different from the normal main characters, though it is a hard sell that they would have all ended up serving on the same ship. That is the Mirror Universe episode. Big ask for me, but I can let it slide. We next return to the Mirror Universe with the DS9 episodes, which I do enjoy. I might be the only one here, but I do find Intendant Kira Nerys damn sexy. Come on. She's smoking hot. If I was ever to meet her, I would be hard-pressed to say no to her. Me too. Saying that, I find it hard to believe that any of the main Human Federation characters could exist at this point in time, yet alone be anywhere near DS9, or in this case, Terok Nor, given the difference in the universe. With people killing each other to get ahead and major events being vastly different after Kirk and company originally visited that universe, sure, Worf, Quark, Odo, Kira, and other non-Empire races could exist, but not Empire ones. The Empire had been taken over 50 years ago, and every member race that was part of the Empire, whether as equals, Vulcans, or enslaved, were now slaves to the Klingon-Cardassian alliance. Think of it this way. Let's say that the Nazis won the Second World War. The world we know today would be vastly different and would look nothing like it does now, and that only in a space of 76 years. Most people born in the late 40s and 50s would have been born, but millions would not have, and the people that never existed in our world would never have been born. Those people that were born during this time would have lived completely different lives to the ones we know if they had lived. Take me, for example. If the Nazis had won the war, my dad and mom would have been born. However, with my dad being born in India, he would have never come to the UK in the late 50s. He would never have joined the Royal Air Force in the 70s and never have been posted to Scotland where he met my mother, which means my sister and I would not exist now. As for my other half, well, she's Jewish, so you can guess what would have happened to her grandparents, which means that her parents never came to that sort of world, and if they did, they would most likely have been killed as children. I would say most people here in the PGS under the age of 50 and were born in Europe would most likely not be here to this day. So with that in mind, given the opening titles of Enterprise in A Mirror Darkly Parts 1 and 2, it is indicated that the Nazis did win the war in Europe and then go on to take over parts of the US. This also indicates that this is the splitting point in timelines, which should mean none of the characters from Enterprise should exist in the Mirror Universe timeline either, never mind the original series or the DS9 human characters. The Mirror Universe scene in Discovery could have been the way it was depicted, given it's set 10 years before the original series. But like the original series, the only way the people in that show could exist is for the splitting in timeline to have happened 40 years before the episode takes place. But the less we talk about Discovery, the better, as that is just a bastardization of Trek, and I personally refuse to accept anything post-2005 as canon. Unless Kurtzman comes out and says that, everything post-2005 is not a part of the pre-2005 timeline. Like I said, the Mirror Universe does not make much sense when you think about it. I get why the DS9 writers did the Mirror Universe episode. They were fun and different. It's just a shame that with these episodes, they do not really work in line with the TOS episode, and the writers did not put much thought or care into these episodes like they did with the main Trek timeline. But if they did, and do, these episodes with none of the actors that played Human Federation characters appearing in the Mirror Universe as their mirror counterparts, it could have been very interesting to revisit that universe from one of the alien characters' point of view, which I guess they did with Kira and Bashir in the first DS9 Mirror episode. It's just a shame there's a mirror version of Sisko and the others. As for the Enterprise episodes, it just makes the matters worse given what I said above. What are your thoughts, Rob, and those of the Post-Geek Singularity? Peace and long life. Well, Dean, you're not wrong. I mean, I loved Mirror Mirror as a one-off. Because when you watch it as a one-off, remember that episode takes place in the space of mere hours. Hours. It's not like days go by, mere hours. It's like half a day, if that. Like 6 hours or something, 3 hours. I don't know. It's a very, very short period of time. We just catch a glimpse. And I think what's so great about the Mirror Universe episodes is they're so intriguing because we only catch a glimpse. There's not enough time. We're not spending enough time in that universe to ponder what you're bringing up. Your astute observations about how the Mirror Universe couldn't possibly exist. How does this empire exist? How do our characters wind up at the same place on... I mean, Kirk and Spock on the same starship. Kirk in command, Spock underneath him. How does this happen in the Mirror Universe? Well, when you only get a one-off and it's just a glimpse... Maybe that's the only time you ever saw the Mirror Universe, and when our crew returns, maybe the Mirror Universe was actually created during the transition itself, so there was no Mirror Universe until the Ion Storm somehow and the transporter split open or created its own pocket universe. We don't really know. But the Mirror Universe has been something Star Trek novelists have returned to again and again. Comic book writers have returned to again and again. So the Mirror Universe, the idea of your evil counterpart existing, is something that is, I think, irresistible. And when people are talking about the multiverse or the physics of it all, the idea that there's more than one universe, I mean, all that stuff plays into it. But I agree with you. I think one of the problems with the Mirror Universe in Star Trek, and it was unfortunate, I mean, I know that this was also in Brian Fuller's original incarnation of Discovery, was that the Mirror Universe existed and they wanted to delve into it. But the more you delve into the Mirror Universe, the more you realize, well, this is just all gobbledygook. How could this possibly happen? You know, and I agree. I mean, it's a great concept. I think, in a way, as much as I adore Mirror Mirror, and if you really want to read some great books, read David Mack's Mirror Universe duology. The Sorrows of Empire and Rise Like Lions. Oh my God, they are such great books. If you love the Mirror Universe and you've never read any Star Trek books, pick those two books up because they literally pick up right when Kirk comes back. It's all set in the Mirror Universe, and it's done from the perspective of, well, Spock. And well, I don't want to ruin anything, but if you are interested in the Mirror Universe, those books are very plausible and very interesting. And I'm a big fan of David Mack as a Star Trek writer. So, indeed. So, yeah, what can I say? A great letter. So, thank you for that. Let's see. This letter comes from Jermaine K. I'm delving back into letters that I haven't caught up with. Hello, Rob. Congrats on 700 episodes. That's awesome. I have no doubt that the next 700 will be just as thoughtful, fun, and interesting. I'll be along for the ride. Writing you today after watching episode 707, literally finished seconds ago. Modern Star Trek suffers, in my opinion, from the same malady that has infected Star Wars. The people currently in charge have no regard for the lore. In fact, I believe they're openly hostile to it. A dystopian, pessimistic view of the world doesn't fit either franchise, yet we're living through a time of very dystopian, pessimistic views and philosophies. Star Trek was about a hopeful future, so that had to go immediately. Instead of the Federation being about boldly going with hope, optimism, and a spirit of exploration at their core, we got decapitations, F-bombs, and Icheb's eyes being torn out while he's screaming in horrible pain. Seriously, Rob, what the fuck? Who thought it was a good idea to take the most harmless character ever portrayed in Star Trek and do him like that? I repeat, what the fuck? Star Wars was treated no better. The Force Awakens, which is an illogical title, showed the main heroes as complete failures. Han Solo became a coward, not a strong husband that stood by Leia. Leia never accomplished much in life besides leading rebels in a bunker. Luke's character assassination in The Last Jedi is so disgusting I'd need a whole letter just to express how vile that was. The First Order is stronger than the Empire, and the Emperor somehow survived. Still waiting for a worthwhile explanation for that one. Neither franchise is being treated with any regard for the history. They're being purposely rewritten in ways that disrespect it. It's sad to see, but it's no accident. I don't know why, but this is a choice by the folks in charge. Is it agenda-driven? When did dystopian disregard become cool? Hopefully, things will turn around for both franchises soon. Thanks, and take care. Jermaine K. Well, Jermaine, I think you're preaching to the choir of all of us. I'm right there with you. I don't understand it. I don't think that people who are making Star Trek understand it either. I just don't think anybody has any understanding of even optimism, like in the way how we're trying to make advancements. Like if you look at today, what's going on in academia, we're not making progress, whether it's politically or with race relations or with LGBTQ rights or anything like that. We're not even forwarding the agendas of people. We're not even helping people without telling other people, you're bad. You're a bad racist fuck. You were born that way. And so rather than talk about how we can celebrate our differences, we're telling other people, nope, you're bad, you're awful, you're born that way, that's the way you are, and you just don't know it. So here's what you need to learn. I find that strange. I always say you can't trade one oppression for another. Everybody has to, be lifted up together. What did Martin Luther King talk about? That people should not be judged on the color of their skin, but what's in their character? When do we lose sight of that? Well, I think we lost sight of that when other people believed they had the moral high ground. All of these people that are running around pointing their fingers at everyone else, they believe that they're somehow better than you. If they're pointing their fingers at you, where did they get this great anointment that tells them that they're in a position to tell us what to do with ourselves? When did that happen? I never thought that was the case. I mean, as much as I can talk about people and tell them what I think is right and wrong, this is just my opinion, man. It doesn't mean I'm certainly not anointed. I try and make sense of the world using home entertainment and my books to give me guidance. The great stories to me are the signposts that point toward human truths. And I think all of our great stories tell us ways in which we could emulate or try and be. That's what storytelling is all about. But nowadays we have people telling us what we should do with ourselves. People writing books saying, "Nope, you're a racist fuck," or "Nope, you're not this, you're not an ally, you're not whatever, you're a bad person." Well, let me tell you something. You're never going to get to enlightenment by telling other people they're bad. What you should do is work on yourself. Don't worry about what other people do. Worry about yourself. Lead through example. Don't point your finger at somebody else. Don't try and take other people down. I mean, if you're doing that, the problem is not them. The problem is you. And I think a lot of our franchises and a lot of what's going on now in our entertainment, there's a lot of creators out there that somehow believe that their message is the one that's worth listening to. No, the message that was worth listening to is something that's inherent in a good story. A great creator tells a great story, and the story has the truth that should be self-evident if the storyteller is good at what they do. So the storyteller is not pointing their finger at you. The storyteller is creating a story that you should, through the truth of that story, be able to understand and glean the knowledge that the artist or the storyteller wanted you to glean. Nowadays, there's all these people going, you. Who the fuck are you, man? Don't tell me what to do. Don't tell me what to think. Don't brand me a racist from birth. Don't do that. How do you know? What gives you the right to tell me what I think or what I feel. This is the problem with a lot of our storytelling. Suddenly our storytellers just decided that they were evangelists, or better yet, preachers, and they were going to tell us what to go do with ourselves because they're the enlightened ones and we're not. Since when? What school did you go to give you this enlightenment? Tell me a story. Make that story truthful. Again, don't put your agenda first. Give me great characters and a great story. If you know how to tell a great story, the truths that you want to convey will be self-evident in that story if you're a good storyteller. If they're not, if you're going to get on a soapbox and preach at me, well, your stories aren't worth reading or listening to or watching anymore, are they? That's just an opinion, man. You might have a different one. Who knows? Yeah. Therein ends my, whatchamacallit? I don't know what you want to call it. Desmond writes in. Desmond says, "Hi, Toyman. How are you doing? I'm curious, do movie studios try and repurpose sets, props, or staff across movie production schedules? Example, A24 Studio has 10 movies per year. 2 of the movie productions are being filmed month on month, back to back, or close to each other. By repurposing staff or items for cost efficiency, given the current movie climate where movies are considered expensive, is this something that happens, or are the production schedules, logistics, and commercials too exclusive to a particular production due to the legalities? Kind regards, Desmond. P.S. Are you in Tim Burton's Batman and the museum scene, the where does he get those wonderful toys scene? One of the Joker's henchmen who paints the head statue seems to resemble you with a leather jacket. As you did work at Warner Brothers approximately around that time, as you mentioned, I actually did not stop working at Warner Brothers until September of 1989. That's when I started there. So no, I was not in Batman. However, when Batman came out on June 19th, I was in fact working on Leatherface, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3. So, but not in Batman, which I believe was shot in London. So I would have had to have gone over there. But nope, that wasn't me. Good question, though. Well, Desmond, the Star Trek shows, when they were being made on the lot, obviously, like Voyager, for instance, used the engineering intermix chamber was the same one that we saw in Star Trek the Motion Picture. When Next Generation, Deep Space Nine, and Discovery were on the air, they frequently cannibalized. They were using stuff over and over again all the time, and it really helped brought down the costs. Corridors, all kinds of things. From the movies, you saw them turn up. The movies had things that were on Next Generation turn up. They were shooting on sets that were Next Generation sets, redressed. So Star Trek really benefited from that. Movies, not so much. However, you will notice a lot of clothing and a lot of set pieces from various films because there are prop houses that people go rent things from. There's a doohickey. You probably have seen it in movies. It's like it's got 2 different red energy rotating like cylinders, and then there are 2 machines on either end. It rotates. What was that noise? You know what that is. But you've seen that prop shows up in so many different movies. I think if you Google your favorite sci-fi prop of all time, it'll probably... Actually, why don't we try that now? Let's see. Prop. Let's call it that. Right? Maybe? Will it get me that? I don't know. We'll see. That didn't really work. It's not now. It gave. Let's see. Of course. Nope. That it meant favorite side, meaning here buy a prop. Prop in movies. Nope. Then see. I can't say best. This isn't working. Well, nope. Oh, here it is. Here it is. I found it. That means I can put it up. And there are pictures of, oh, look at it. You're all going to remember this. There's even actually a piece. And let me just put this up and tell me if you recognize this sci-fi prop or not. So this is a prop at a prop rental house. So anybody can rent it. And we rented it once on Femme Fatales because we wanted to have it in an episode. And so here it is. Tell me if this picture might not lend itself well to you recognizing what it is. But I'll show it to you. Here's the prop. And imagine those red oscillating lights. Do you recognize that prop? There's actually there's a video here. I don't know what it's from, but this prop. Well, it's not much of an article. I thought that this would give me an article. But anyway, this prop has been in. It was in Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan. It's been in a lot of things. So this is a prop you can rent. It shows up in a lot of movies. But you'd think that what you're asking is like what TV does. Television keeps the same crew for a whole season, and then you have directors that come in and are switched out. But to answer your question, every movie is its own business. It starts from scratch. Usually it's founded as an LLC. So every movie is its own business. And that means so a movie gets made under an LLC, all the money goes into the LLC. And even if a studio is making a movie, they found their own LLC, they open their own business, and the entire movie is made under one, usually an LLC license. And then when the studio takes it over, the studio actually buys the film from the LLC, even though the studio probably set up the LLC in the first place. So every movie is its own entity. And while it seems like it would be a smart thing to do, like just move over the crew and we'll keep them going, sometimes there's 2 or 3 movies being made at the same time, so you have to have different crew or more crew, or you're putting different crew members to work, so you can't really do it that way. But for TV, they do. Think of every television episode, it's a different episode, but they got the same crew, if that makes any sense. And I hope it does. But that was a good letter, so thank you for that. This was a funny letter that Omar sent in. And it's about Manifest. Omar says, "Hi, Rob, moderators of the Post-Geek Singularity. Rob, your disappointment with Manifest being canceled had me looking back at shows which I was disappointed in finding out were canceled. I enjoyed watching the Young Indiana Jones Chronicles and was disappointed how it didn't last longer, as it was canceled after its 2nd season. A number of animated shows based on comic books which I like were also canceled, which disappointed me since I really enjoyed them. Spider-Man, the new animated series, was canceled after just 1 season. Spectacular Spider-Man was canceled after 2 seasons. And Avengers Earth Mightiest Heroes was canceled after 2 seasons. I remember being frustrated with all these shows being canceled after enjoying them, since they had fan bases which could keep the shows going. Thanks and live long and prosper." Well, Omar, I share your frustration, but I want you to know that Manifest, my love for Manifest is absolutely tongue-in-cheek. I think while Manifest was the cast was good with a lot of conviction. The show was glorious gobbledygook. I watched it because of how ridiculous it became. I know I want to have Jeff Rake. I want to say, Jeff, your show was really well made. The cast, man, they were convicted. But what was up with your storylines, bro? I wanted to ask him. About the impossible premise. So my adoration of Manifest was genuine. But don't make the mistake of me thinking that I thought it was a great show. It was almost the antithesis of that. It wasn't that it was a bad show, though, because it wasn't. It was just gobbledygook. I'm like, I don't believe a word that's happening or anything that's happening in this show, because it doesn't. It was 2 different shows that were like mashed together, and I marveled at what the writers tried to pull off every week. Like the fact that they got us to believe. Well, they never got me to believe, but I watched it because I'm like, what are you guys going to do next? It was crazy. But still, I don't like it when shows are canceled too early. I didn't like it when Wise Guy was canceled after 3 seasons. I understood why, but I didn't really like it. So that was a bummer. Now, here's a letter that I've been holding on to for a while that I thought I would read. This is since it's our Lady Moderators Day here at Robservations Letter Central. This letter comes to us from who, by the way, is now my co-host on Friday's episodes of Midnight Metal. Yeah. So you'll be seeing tonight at midnight, or in her case, 3 o'clock in the morning. She went and saw the Mexican film New Order, and she wrote a review of it. Now, New Order is a story about crazy leftists attacking the elite during a uprising, and what happens during that. And it's very dystopian and hard-hitting, and I really want to see New Order. It's the movie that I'm going to buy sight unseen on Blu-ray when it comes out. But so she reviewed it. New Order 2020, a review, the non-spoiler version. Roma's 1970s resentment and our modern-day fears of mob rule and political unrest come to a crescendo in New Order 2020 this year. Told in a, quote, dystopian near future, New Order focuses on the class divide of the upper class and their employees, but this time we're given a fuller picture. Also included are the upper class and their codependence on the military-driven political regime and the manipulation of all classes, working class Mexicans, the wealthy, and the political military leaders by rogue military factions. In New Order, we also know more about what is going on behind the scenes and are given a privileged view. There's no fear of missing anything in this film because it's impossible to close your eyes even if you might want to. New Order was written, directed, produced, and edited by Michael France. To say that the execution of this film is ambitious is an understatement, and perhaps the meaning of the film has become greater because of recent political unrest and strife, but nevertheless, many of the themes in the film relate to modern times, regardless of political affiliation or political stability. New Order seems to take place in the same sphere as Roma, and although the two films are not associated with one another, I can't help but compare them because they both deal with similar themes and garnered a great deal of attention, winning awards as well as criticism for their views on class relations. In Roma, we are given a specific reason why the working class harbor mistrust and resentment toward the upper class that took their land away and continues to keep them subservient. We even see indoctrination of a sort in a village that will ultimately lead to the main character, a housemaid named Cleo, to be physically threatened during a riot by the very man who abandoned her once he discovered she was pregnant. Ultimately, the family embraces and seems to accept Cleo as part of the family, but the sacrifices expected of Cleo by her employer and former boyfriend are unfair, and Cleo almost has no choice but to stay in service, otherwise risking more of her own demise. Fast forward to New Order, where a more mature housekeeper, perhaps an older version of Cleo, is working in a wealthy household with a relative. At the beginning of the film, we're immediately given strong warnings and signs that there's a problem that no one wants to talk about. We aren't once again told this in the film or given justifications to explain why the working class is resentful toward their employers, but in a rather clever twist, we're presented with certain situations that remind us that despite relationships and neighborly perceptions toward those around them, the upper class in this film don't necessarily view their working class employees as equals and perhaps even fear them. The working class uprising in New Order presents itself as an organized operation, while we see other factions viewing the uprising as an opportunity to strike when the city is at its moment of weakness. Using downtown at its base, no good deed goes unpunished as we witness the unfortunate events unfolding upon the wedding guests, those who have been taken captive, and the working class who become pawns in a game. It is a game with no winners, as the wealthy are miserly amongst their own, the military strength is siphoned, and the working class is all but imprisoned. This New Order works only for those that survive, conceal injustice and atrocities, and punish the innocent. A conversation starter from beginning to end, New Order's appeal is in what it reveals in the harsh realities of life. This film is filled with brutality, but it's not for shock value. The director is showing us this so we won't pretend to be ignorant of the truth in this dystopia. We can't pretend New Order's heartlessness doesn't exist, and we won't be allowed to disclaim it, regardless of our personal or political beliefs. Once again, that was what a great non-spoiler review. I'm dying to see this movie. I don't know why I haven't already seen this movie, but kind of a bummer. What can I do? I don't know. I don't know what I can or can't do. But I really want to see it, and I haven't seen it, and it really bothers me. But I'm going to get around to it. I'm glad you went and saw it. Let's see where we are right now. I don't even know where we are, but we're going to find out where we are. Guess who, everyone? Willow is here. I'm going to jump into what you all have to say right now. And what you all have to say, the beginning comes to us from Willow Yang. Willow. Willow says, since you were talking about Tropic Thunder the other day, did you recognize Tom Cruise when he first appeared in the movie? I didn't pay attention to the credits, and I actually did not find out that he was Les Grossman until years later. Oh, I knew. I knew he was going to be in the movie. And, of course, you can't mistake it. His voice is unmistakable. I loved him in that. I thought it was so good. I loved him as Les Grossman. Playa. Oh, come on. That was one of the great comedic performances from Tom Cruise. I mean, who would have thought that he would? I mean, the man's fearless. He said famously he wanted to dance and have fat hands. That's what he told Ben Stiller, and Ben Stiller didn't know what that meant, and the rest is history. I mean, he even you don't hear Tom Cruise really swearing. In Magnolia, he was great, but I feel like, when you can get him on a good day, I've always liked Tom Cruise as an appealing actor. I've always liked him. I loved him in everything from Risky Business to Top Gun to Rain Man to A Few Good Men to Jerry Maguire. I mean, I'm a huge Tom Cruise fan. I'll admit it. Unabashed Tom Cruise fan. And I think probably nobody works harder. I'm going to tell a story. I won't tell the story because I can't tell a story, but I promise I wouldn't tell it. But I'll give you a study in a nutshell. Renee Zellweger, a person who was telling me this story, said that Renee Zellweger was the single nicest person they'd ever worked with in the industry, and they worked very close with her. And when they were working together, Renee Zellweger told them that one of the nicest people she had worked with in the industry was Tom Cruise, and that on Jerry Maguire, he went above and beyond to make her feel comfortable and protect her. And for all of the craziness, I've told that story before on the show, I was able to, at one time in my life, have about an hour-long conversation with Tom Cruise, and he was a delightful man. And I would love to a very keen mind, I would love to have a conversation with him again. And I think if we actually met one another and I explained to him when we had the conversation, even though it was in 2009, he would remember, because I know that he told somebody it was a memorable conversation. So that was good. I'm a big fan of Tom Cruise, Willow. He can do no wrong, and by God do I love Les Grossman. Dakota sends in a tip and says, a short story idea for someone. A group of film students have been invited to an estate in which there were 3 books written with a 4th book included mixed into the first 3, with clues hidden around the estate. Whoever deciphers the clues will get to direct the movie based on the 4th lost book, but along with finding the clues, each person was given a different paragraph from each of the books, where you have to be able to get the clues from each person as well with the pages missing. I don't know where you're going with that, but okay. But my question is, do you get the budget to make the movie in the end? When you win, do they give you the tens of millions of dollars you would need to make the movie? That's not a bad idea. I could see that. 3 books, 4 books, and film students are competing. I don't know if you could up the stakes enough. Are they getting killed if they don't get the right book? Kobayashi sends in a tip and says, I watched the making of Free Enterprise recently. It has inspired me to write a script about my longtime crush on Megan Fox. Would note you gave off some major dude bro vibes. Had you just woken up from a nap, or had you been hanging out with Snoop Dogg? No, Kobayashi. I know what you're referring to. He is referring to the interview I did for the making of Free Enterprise, which I did at 3 o'clock in the morning after a full day's shoot. Yeah, we were in our studio, and I had been shooting all day long. It would have been a 12-hour day. I was exhausted. And I guess dude bro, I was wearing an inverted baseball hat. And I'll tell you something, on movie sets, wearing a baseball hat is very utilitarian, because when you're outside, you have a brim to protect you from the sun, and also it keeps your hair out of your face, so it's utilitarian. But yeah, that's why I look like that, and I kept my hair on. I kept my hat on because I probably hadn't showered in 2 or 3 days, and yeah, I know. But that's what happens when you're working. So yes, but you know what? I would offer this. If you want to write a script about your crush on Megan Fox, make your female protagonist, the girl you have the crush on, fictionalize her. Don't make her Megan Fox, because that'll just come off weird. And if you send the script to her people, and they read a script where you've written you've written it's a Ramona Clef on your life, and you've written yourself as a character, and you love Megan Fox, that will scare Megan Fox off. And by the way, if you did make that movie, you'd have to get her to sign off on it, because you couldn't have an actress necessarily portray her in the movie. It could get really weird. The Great Muda tips $5 and says, "Thank you for your show in all of its forms." Well, thank you. I love Roger Corman. Last week's Last Drive-In just solidified that. How do you feel about the Pope of Pop Cinema? Truly, your insights are priceless to me. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate. I've never been called priceless before, but thank you very much. Well, I guess I'm not. My insights are, but the same thing. Thank you for that, Great Muda. Well, how can you not love Roger Corman? I mean, I grew up watching, his Edgar Allan Poe adaptations, The Pit and the Pendulum, The Mask of Red Death. I loved movies like exploitation films in the 70s he made, like Death Race 2000. I loved Battle Beyond the Stars. New World was making things like Galaxy of Terror and Forbidden World in the early 80s. I mean, the man's a legend. And, when I was working at Full Moon, Roger Corman's company was in Venice, and we were on San Fernando Road, kind of in Glendale. And it was, I actually got to meet Roger Corman a number of times, usually through Dr. Donald Reed, who's no longer with us, in the Academy of Science Fiction, Fantasy, and Horror Films. I actually had lunch with him a couple times, and he was a character and very inspiring to be around, and very nice, and really somebody that is definitely somebody to be admired. And look at his body of work. His legacy of work is great. He's made great films. He's made cheesy films. He changed the way movies were made. He's a legend, man. And he is a legend, the Pope of Pop Cinema. So I'm a big fan. Big fan of Mr. Corman's. Terrier says Han vaccinated first. Oh, man. All right. I'll give it to you. If you say so, Han vaccinated first. The Great Muda actually became a member of the channel. Well, thank you, Great Muda. I appreciate that. Louis Terrasas sends in a super chat and says the UAP report, the UFO report did drop today, and we're going to talk about that on Midnight Metal tonight. The UAP report came out today. Definitely not U.S. technology. Yeah, no, it's not. Which is pretty odd. What is it? If it's not U.S. tech, what is it? I don't know. Checkmate 9 Moves sends in a tip, says, let us look to the future of Earth, Rob. My question, will humanity allow non-Earth births? What about Mars or space births? Could Earth enforce that all children must be born planet-side? Could this be the next big political fight? What are your thoughts? Thanks. Well, I don't think so. I mean, I think if we're going to have colonies on different planets, of course people are going to be born on different planets. The real question is, where do they get citizenship? Do they get citizenship of their parents? And do they get citizenship on the planet they're born from? I mean, that's a really interesting question. I think, look, first of all, I don't know if pregnant women are going to be going off into space, or if they can eventually make, wombs where men can get pregnant, or eventually create artificial wombs where people can actually get pregnant, and then the babies are moved into incubators that are external, that they're not inside the birth mother. There's going to be all kinds of things. Like, I read a great short story that really freaked me out called Piecework. And it was all about how in the future, in order to have babies, women had to allow their wombs to be used for other things, like incubating industrial lubricants or whatever they were growing. And women had to earn their right to have actual children. And I think it was I want to say it was by Greg Bear. Hang on. Short story. Piecework. Let's see. It's by David Brin. Yep. Piecework. So it's a short story. Let me see what davidbrin.com. It says short fiction of David Brin. It doesn't. I guess there's no. I thought that there was going to. Oh, Piecework. Oh, he published it as a novella. In Piecework, the most sophisticated engineering process on Earth is pregnancy among mammals, especially young humans. There's already talk of using goats and cattle to produce industrial products instead of milk, to bring to term organic machines programmed in eggs and develop in the womb. Might poor women be induced to rent out their wombs for industrial piecework? You can actually get this at Amazon Kindle. Let's see if it... Here you go. I'm going to put this in the live chat. It's a story that I thought was quite interesting. Piecework by David Brin. Here it is. If you are at all interested, there's a link to the story you can buy for 99 cents or the paperback book for $12. So yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think that's a really interesting question. I don't think we're really there yet, but I don't see anybody being prevented from giving birth in space. I don't know. Swack Props says, "Hi Rob, I can't wait to see Paul Jenkins' upcoming documentary on Axanar and the Tiger King of Star Trek. Might we see you interviewed in it?" I think it's a good bet that yes. So for those of you who don't know, there is a new crowd-funded documentary that's going to be made by Eisner-winning comic writer Paul Jenkins. And it is called Into the Wormhole, The Battle for Axanar, which is going to be the first in a proposed series of Into the Wormhole documentaries that look at the rise of toxic fandom and what that means. And where does that come from in all walks of, fandom, whether you're soccer hooligans or whatever. That's what the Into the Wormhole is going to be. But the first one concentrates on the making of Axanar and Alec Peters. And, it's really interesting. Paul Jenkins was the third Axanar director. Christian Gossett was the first. I was the second. And Paul Jenkins was the third. And all we did was try and do good work. And Alec Peters came after us and sued us. That cost great pain, stress, and hardship for all three of us in varying degrees. And the real question is, why would you do that? Why would you do that to the people that... I mean, he's sitting on a throne over in his own little shed talking about Axanar. I mean, the last time Axanar, anything was actually finished that Alec made, was never, because Christian made Prelude to Axanar. I made the Vulcan scene, and I made the Vulcan scene in 2015. So that was 6 years ago this month that it was shot. So, yeah, I think it's going to be an interesting documentary, and if Paul wants to interview me, he knows he can. I will probably participate anyway. I don't know, but I'm sure I will. I would. Stub McShave says, "Sitting here, slightly inebriated from drinking snaps and beer during today's festivities. I'm also a little bit sad to have to wait another couple weeks for Dune." Stubble, well, first of all, it's nice to know you're out partying and having a good time. Yes, Dune was delayed from, October 8th to, October 22nd or something today. What a bummer. But you know what? I mean, this is really water, but here's to you, sir. Glad you're having a good time. Darth Plato says, "Balkanization is not in progress." Let's hope not. I wouldn't want the balkanization of us to where the balkanization anywhere. I don't want. I wouldn't want that at all. I like Darth Plato. He's up on his history, which is good. My Rhino, he's always sending me interesting. He always sends in interesting comments and historically relevant things, which I really very much appreciate. So kudos to you, Darth Plato, and thanks for supporting the channel, and thanks for always sending in interesting things to ponder. My Rhino sends in a super chat and says, one of two, any thoughts on The Hitman's Wife's Bodyguard? I have not seen it, but I like the first one. For a blockbuster with such a first-class cast as Reynolds, Jackson, Salma Hayek, Antonio Banderas, and Morgan Freeman, I'm shocked at how little buzz I've heard. Did you see it? I think this is a bigger flop than In the Heights, and it has stars. I find it interesting that The Hitman's Wife's Bodyguard didn't hit, which is weird because the first one was so successful. That's why they greenlit it. I just don't think I saw it. It looked a little too silly to me. I was really surprised. I really enjoyed it. I saw the first one on a plane. I didn't go see it, and I watched it, and I was like, that looks pretty good. And I watched it, and I thought it was great. But the sequel, I was like, It it looked kind of like more of the same, but bigger and more crazy. But yeah, I haven't heard much about it. I haven't talked to anybody who's liked it or anything like that. But that doesn't mean it wasn't good. I just don't know anybody that's experienced it. But you know what? I will absolutely, when that comes to streaming, I will watch it. I will totally watch it. But yeah, I'm surprised it didn't do well at all, and it kind of there's no buzz about it, which I find strange. Don't understand why. My co-host tonight, get ready. We're going to talk about that UFO report. I talked about UFOs last night. We're going to do it tonight. We're going to read all about it. So, because you know what? UFOs are metal. They're metal. They're metal ships that have come to us from far away. And so UFOs are inherently metal. That's why we can talk about them tonight. And whatever else you want to talk about, as my co-host, I want you to bring in a subject that we will address, whatever that may be. So there you go. Roger Grine. Or Grain? No, it's Ed Grine. I think I got it right? I am torn between R&B for president and R&B as the guy in charge of Star Trek. Both would be great. Well, Roger, I got to tell you, given a choice, I would much rather be in charge of Star Trek. I do not want to be president of the United States, especially because it would be monumentally... you know what? It would be so frustrating working in Washington today when you're a head of the government where all you're going to do is fight with half of your coworkers, or you're going to fight with the whole time you're president. Like, you would think that once a president's elected, everybody would suddenly move forward and try and fix the problems that we have. But we don't. We're going to fight and argue because everyone's positioning themselves for the next election. We're never going to get anything done. We're going to play partisan politics until, we had one building fall in Miami yesterday, which is absolutely horrific. Eventually, the whole panhandle is going to be covered with water. And people are going to be like, oh, my God, why didn't we do anything? Well, you did. You could have. We could have. We're not. Justin Toner says, Rob, thanks for sharing the Twitter thread I alerted you to. Yes, Justin did alert me to a great Twitter thread about why Ridley Scott's Legend is not going to be in 4K. So that was great. Thank you for that, Justin. Rob, thanks for sharing the Twitter thread I alerted to you from the Arrow producer James Flower explaining why their upcoming Legend Blu-ray is not in 4K. Very informative. I don't have it on Blu-ray, so I'm planning on getting it. Cheers. I do, and it's a good disc, and I enjoyed it. And I'm going to get, I'll get that Arrow upgrade, absolutely. Roger Grine also goes on to say, I just rewatched MacGyver and Knight Rider. Those shows wouldn't work today, but I find them as entertainment as years go by. Any thoughts? Yeah, you know what? I always liked MacGyver and Knight Rider. They were fun to watch. The mindless network television, but it was fun. They both had very appealing lead actors, and I enjoyed them. I did enjoy both Knight Rider. I mean, I didn't watch, once I got a VCR in 1980, I didn't watch TV hardly at all. Unless it was a mini series like Winds of War or V or something. I really stopped watching network television or any kind of television in 1980. I went strictly movies. I didn't watch TV much. Unless something would catch my fancy. Like, I would watch Miami Vice. And I would watch, like, Wise Guy. I loved Wise Guy. And if there was a miniseries like Winds of War, man, I was all in. Shogun, Winds of War, anything like that I loved. Because they were more movies than anything else. So I kind of missed out on television for 30 years. But I'd catch up with an episode here and there. But mostly it was all movies for me. But I would watch those when I would come by them. So, yeah. There you go. Justin Toner says, and Rob's Severin Films sale on their website started today with tons of new releases, including the 3-disc 4K set for Blood of Dracula up for pre-order. Probably going to give in and order that. Yeah, I've got to get Blood for Dracula, Andy Warhol's Blood for Dracula. That has one of my favorite lines in any movie, which is, to know life, you must first fuck death in the gallbladder. Or something along those lines. I actually laughed out loud when I heard that because, man, there's a lot of crazy sexual content in that movie. But I'm getting it. Brendan Sheehy. Brendan, what are you doing? All my moderators, I'm telling you. Rob, I'm getting a bit sick of the term filler episode. I enjoyed Loki episode 3 as a fun romp with some neat, unique visuals not seen in the MCU yet. I agree. There's more to storytelling than being obsessed with forward momentum. Example, Pine Barrens in The Sopranos. Ooh, Pine Barrens was a great episode. Remember that? Remember that episode, stuck in the cab of a pickup or whatever? You know, they were eating ketchup because they had nothing to eat. Except, I love that Pine Barrens episode. I thought it was interesting. I don't know where it's going, but I thought it was interesting, and I thought the visuals were great. But yeah, I think everybody wants every episode to, like, I need meaning. I need the great giant plot of the MCU to lurch forward. No, I enjoyed it. I thought it was fun, but filler. Yeah, Louis Terrasas said, Rob, stop going on John Campia's show. You don't need him, brah. The way he cut you off today was stinging. It makes me not want to watch anymore. Oh, well, Louis, first of all, one, I appreciate that. But two, I go on John's show because, one, he asked me, and two, I like doing it. And it is his show. I mean, John definitely has a format, and he very much sticks to his format, and that's why I think people like the show. He moves it along, and, I tend to get a little long-winded. That's why I have my own show, because I can sit here and talk all I want, and anybody can turn me off whenever they want to. But I very much appreciate your support, sir. Very much so. But, yeah, I mean, I don't know how long I would stay doing it, but, we're coming up on a 3-year anniversary in August, and I've enjoyed being on John's show, and I do have fun with it. I do have fun. I do enjoy it. So if I stop enjoying it, I wouldn't do it anymore. But for the time being, it's all right. I enjoy it. But I understand what you're saying. I mean, sometimes it's his show, and I don't think he doesn't want me to run away with it and talk all kinds of craziness, because I would. Degrassi Knowles subscribe to the channel. Thank you, Degrassi Knowles. And if anybody's watching the show for the first time, hey, subscribe. Matt Corey sends in a super chat and says, have you ever watched an anime called Akame ga Kill? It's one of my favorite anime of all time. I have never watched it, but let's take a gander on this newfangled thing called the internet and see. Let's see. I don't know this, but on the initial my initial glance at it, looks cool to me. I like the character designs. I'm in. I'd watch that. Let's see what it says in the Wikipedia. Akame ga Kill is a Japanese manga series written by Takahiro and illustrated by Tetsuya Toshiro. It is serialized in Square Enix's Gangen Joker from March 2010 to December 2016. The story focuses on Tatsumi, a young villager who travels to the capital to raise money for his home, only to discover strong corruption in the area. The assassin group known as Night Raid recruits the young man to help them in their fight against the corrupt empire. Well, that sounds good to me, and there's all kinds of hot girls in it too. So there you go. There's nothing better than hot Asian girls in anime. What can I say? It's all good. Roger Grimes goes on to say, "Oh wait, hang on, no, but I haven't seen it. That actually sounds up my alley. It actually sounds like it's pretty good. I'll check it out." The Great Muda says, "I love the Highlander saga. However, I'm way more a fan of the TV show. Which one did you prefer, Rob?" Well, again, I saw some of the episodes of the TV show, usually when they would have a crossover with Connor McLeod. But I like the movie, and I've heard the series. I only watched sporadic episodes of it, and I liked Adrian Paul. The episodes I saw were all pretty good, but I didn't watch it from beginning to end. I was a fan, but I liked the movie. I liked the first movie. And I think it's good. I watched it recently, and it kind of holds up. It's a lot of fun. I'll be curious to see what they do with it. Roger Grind says, Winds of War. First of all, one of my favorite things that's ever been on TV, Winds of War, just so you know. I have the DVD box set here, and I haven't watched it yet. I promise I'll give it a try on my vacation. Bruh, do yourself a favor. Winds of War is amazing. And then the sequel, War and Remembrance, which is weird because they had to swap out some of the cast, but it's still amazing. But Winds of War is one of my favorite things that's ever been on TV. I loved it. The Great Muda goes on to say, did you experience Joe Bob Briggs in his heyday? I religiously read Joe Bob Briggs' reviews. Religiously. I lived for them. They were syndicated, my local paper in Seattle, and I read them. One of my favorite movie reviews ever was Joe Bob Briggs' review of American Ninja. That's how much I've been reading Joe Bob Briggs. I'm a huge fan. And Joe, Bob, and Darcy seem right up your alley. The Last Drive-In, come on. I just enjoy the Venn diagram of my interests. Yes, I love Joe Bob Briggs. I've always loved Joe Bob Briggs. I mean, he was in Casino, and he was in The Stand. He was in Mick Garris's version of The Stand. I'm a big fan. So absolutely, and I like that, the Venn diagram of your interests. Yeah, I love Joe Bob Briggs. Big fan. I bought Winds of War in my Jag times, says Roger Grind. Felt kind of meh as I saw the date. Promised to give it a second chance. You got to give it a second chance. I loved it. I loved it. Ed Gein, not Grind. Ed Green. Is it Ed Green? I think Roger Green. It's Ed Gein, Roger Green. Is it Green? Ed Gein, Roger Green. I think you told me that before, and I always forget. I'll just say Green. It's Green, right? Green? Grind? What do you mean? Your Jag times? Does that mean when you were watching Jag or you were in Jag? You were part of the Jag Corps. Look, man, watch it again because it's awesome. It's awesome. I love it. It's one of my favorite things in World War II. Come on. Anyway, as Joshua Levesque says in the live chat, you can now sign up. We have a Discord server. There's actually a Robservations, a Burnettwork Discord server. You should all go on that. There's a newsletter you can sign up for. It's all great. And I think I'm going to bring an end to this episode of Robservations. I want to thank all of you for being here. I want to thank everybody for their generous support of the channel via super chats and tips. Thank you. And I especially love when everybody writes me letters. Great letters today. Thank you all for writing letters. If you want to write a letter free of charge, I'll read it on it's a good letter. I'll read it on the show. You can. Wait a minute. Chris C. says, Rob, have you seen the Star Trek Borg Cube Advent Calendar by Eaglemoss? Check out Big Bad Toy Store. Oh. I have a lot of pre-orders at the Big Bad Toy Store. I don't know what happened to them. The Borg Advent Calendar by Eaglemoss. I love that idea. Advent calendars. Oh my God. Okay. This is dope. You know what? I might have to get this. This is too cool. There's a Borg Cube Advent Calendar. I didn't even know this existed. How this must be new, man. When did they put this thing up? It's $139. But I have to say, I just love this idea. Look at this. Let me put this in the live chat. Because a Borg Advent Calendar is what a great idea that was. That's some officer thinking. And I bet some of you are asking, what would a Borg Advent Calendar look like? That's exactly what I was thinking until I saw a picture of it. And it is here. And I'd like to show it to you. Here it is. There is the Borg Advent Calendar, the Borg Cube Advent Calendar from Eaglemoss. This is hilarious. Celebrate every day of the holiday season in true Star Trek style with this spectacular Advent Calendar. Designed in the shape of an ominous and iconic Borg Cube, this luxury cube calendar is absolutely stuffed with 24 high-quality festive gifts and accessories from beyond the final frontier. By fans for fans, each day's gift comes with a festive note detailing the story and trivia behind it, both wrapped together in branded tissue paper. The Borg Cube Advent Calendar is a perfect pre-Christmas gift for any Star Trek fan. The holidays will be celebrated. Wow, and then it's got a list of everything that's in it. Star Trek playing cards, James T. Kirk pin badge, Quark's Bar bottle stopper, a Vashti art print, Starfleet HQ tea towel, Jean-Luc Picard pin badge, an Enterprise console coaster and tin, Botany Bay luggage tag, Mr. Spock Logic fridge magnet, Delta insignia bottle opener, Catherine Janeway pinch badge, Star Trek laptop stickers, Star Trek Discovery glasses case, boo, Vulcan Idic keyring, Starfleet Command pencil sharpener, Delta insignia paperweight, Benjamin Sisko pin badge, Star Trek episode art postcard set, a USS Enterprise bookmark, communicator travel card holder, the Phoenix commemorative espresso cup, a USS Enterprise D socks, Jonathan Archer pin badge, Borg Cube metal shadow caster. Well, there you go. This thing must be huge. Well, there you go. There it is. And it's only $139.99. I think everybody needs one. So there you go. There you go. It's Ed Grine as an eye with FBI. And I watched Jag. I wasn't in it, but in my dreams. Well, first of all, Chris C., I want to thank you for that. I didn't know that existed. Well, that's dope. I think I might have to get that. This Jewish boy needs an advent calendar. And you know what? A Borg advent calendar is just the kind I need. I love it. And there's even a Doctor Who TARDIS advent calendar, which also looks pretty boss, to be honest. Who says boss these days? Nobody. I never even said boss when I was a kid. I'm just saying it now. Why not? Why can't I say it? But anyway, pretty neat. That's pretty neat. I mean, I definitely think that's really neat. I think I would totally get that one. Why not? Very cool. Anyway, thanks for that. I appreciate that. And Roger Grind, thank you for the super chat. But you got to watch. Do me a favor. Watch it. Watch Winds of War, and get back to me. Tell me how it is. Tell me it's great, because that's all I want to hear. But on that note, I want to thank my moderating staff: Justin Toner, Joshua Levesque, Brian Hepburn, Louise X. Sparrow. Thanks for writing a letter. It was a great letter. Did I say Brian Hepburn? Darren Seeley. All of you guys. Ooh, look at Darren Seeley's got a shark emoji. Where did we get? Do we have those? I want to thank all of you. If I missed anybody, I don't think I did. I don't know if is here, but anyway, join and myself tonight as we bring you Midnight Metal. We're going to talk UFOs. Read up about this UFO report. We're going to get all alien up here in this hizzle. So there you go. So this is an end to Robservations episode number 712, the show about something. And on that note, I want to say every person you meet has a story to tell that you have yet to hear, and all you have to do is listen. And with that, I would say to all of you, have a better day. And I mean that.